Santa Clara Police Department. Wahid, can you hear us?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, so we're looking at some pretty dramatic flames there and the smoke in that area as firefighters are trying to contain the flames. Do we know what happened and what's the firefight like now?
The information that we have at this point is that an apartment complex that was under construction on El Camino Real between Pierce Street and Scott Boulevard is what's on fire right now. Our firefighters are working hard to contain the fire to just that area. However, as a precaution, we have gone ahead and done some evacuations on the back side of this structure, meaning the homes that are on Clay Street all the way out to Pierce Street. So we've asked those residents to evacuate their homes. In addition, we have closed off El Camino Real east and westbound traffic between Scott Boulevard and Lincoln Street. The fire has reached a point of being a 4-alarm blaze, and we're hoping to get it under control in the near future.
So we're looking at this structure, which looks like a total loss at this point. Part of the framing we heard has collapsed because of these flames. And we're also seeing from this Chopper 5 shot, some of the flames may be reaching some of the other structures that are those apartments that are lived in, or those are under construction as well?
That area has a lot of construction going on. There is another construction project going on just west of this apartment complex. There's a new restaurant that's being built there. However, there are single-family homes that back up to it and additional businesses that are on the east side of the apartment complex that's on fire.
Now, sir, I know that construction sites have so many chemicals and flammable objects on site. Are there any health concerns at this point with this vast amount of smoke that's going up?
You know, I'm not an expert on hazmat. However, obviously there's a large amount of smoke that's going on, and with all the activity that's in the area, we are asking people to stay out of the area for their benefit as well as ours to be able to operate safely. Like I mentioned before, our fire department is aggressively addressing this fire and hoping to get it under control in the near future.
One thing we are seeing that's a big difference from just a few minutes ago is that smoke is now turning to white smoke. So is that a good sign?
Again, you're talking to a police officer, not a firefighter. So
okay.
As much as I would love to tell you
Fair
yes,
enough.
it is, I don't know.
Okay.
I have one quick question for you. When this call came in, I mean, how did it come in? Was it small flames, or when this call came in, was it already fully engulfed?
You know, I don't know precisely what the initial callers reported. Obviously, there was a large amount of smoke very quickly that was going straight up into the air, which I've been told is a good sign because they're showing some containment already with the fire as the smoke is going straight up. However, again, that's something that's going to be looked at closely once we have everything under control.
Okay, Wahid Kazim from Santa Clara Police Department, thanks so much for talking with us. We're going to check in with you in just a bit, but right now we're going to talk to Rosemary Barnes at the San Jose Airport. She is a spokesperson for the airport. Rosemary, can you tell me if it's affecting anyone at the airport or any flights?
Good morning. At this time, no flights have been impacted. Aircraft continue to both land and depart. Our team is in touch with Air Traffic Control Tower here, and again, there have been no reported flight impacts so far.
Okay, and we know that this is fairly close to the airport there, to San Jose Mineta International Airport. Are you just kind of keeping an eye on this, watching out, and in case you have to make any changes?
Certainly. The Air Traffic Control Tower is located on the west side of the airport, and the controllers there have a 200 feet perch overlooking that fire. So they'll be keeping an eye on that, as well as our operations team, to make sure there are no impacts to air quality as well as flight visibility. If there are, they'll certainly be making some operational changes.
And when it comes to making that call, Rosemary, what exactly goes into making that decision? I mean, are there standards for visibility?
Well, I can't speak for FAA, but I can tell you that typically what they would do is they would reroute aircraft around that plume of smoke just to make sure if aircraft aren't traveling directly above it, obviously through it. but they would, for both landing and departing aircraft, whether it's commercial or general aviation, they would be certainly having aircraft divert away from that plume of smoke, just so as not to impact any of the aircraft up above the airfield.
About how many flights do you have coming and going at this hour?
Well, this time of day, it is getting into a busier time. We're heading into the noon hour, and certainly we're getting into, the travel, beginning of the travel weekend ahead. So I don't know specifically. We've seen quite a few airplanes that are gates, including some international flights that are getting ready to head out. But again, just seeing aircraft push back and pulling into the gate. So that's a good sign that the aircraft operations are continuing and hopefully continuing without delay.
Okay, Rosemary Barnes with San Jose Mineta International Airport. Thanks so much for talking with us. We're going to check in with you in just a little bit. Now, if you're just tuning in, we want to just give you a recap of what's going on here. Chopper 5 is over a structure fire right now in Santa Clara. You can see that the fire department is out there trying to contain these flames. This is a building along El Camino Real between Pierce and Clay. It was under construction. The fire started just about 30 minutes ago. We've been watching it for about 30 minutes now. East and westbound traffic along El Camino Real is closed right now, and people have been evacuated who live on Clay there. You can see that this is in a not only a residential area, but also businesses nearby. We saw a Denny's across the street from one of them. So the fire crews are not only trying to contain these flames, but they're also doing some defensive efforts to try and keep the flames contained to just that structure.
Again, most importantly, when we want to make sure that everyone in this area is safe, and so officials have ordered a mandatory evacuation for those who live behind this area on the back side of this construction site, I should say, from Clay to Pierce. If you are in that area, they're asking you to get your belongings or get your family, your pets, and just get out of the area while they're working to make sure they are able to keep this under control, or at the very least get it out before it spreads. As we all know too well, fire is just unpredictable, and nothing, you just have to be safe.
Just be safe, exactly. And when those evacuations come in, you have to listen to law enforcement. Now, we want to go to KPIX5's Len Ramirez, who is on the phone, and you're on your way to the scene. Have you heard any more information?
Well, I can tell you what I can see from this vantage point. Excuse me, let me... Getting a little feedback there. The fire is still burning. It's still putting out a lot of smoke. I am on El Camino Real near the fire scene. Just a couple of blocks away. Traffic is moving and businesses are open. But this is a ongoing event. There are multiple units still arriving from the various feeder roads into the area. Now, one of the things that this reminded me of was the Santana Row fire, because it was a similar situation several years back when they were building Santana Row. A fire erupted there. The problem that really happened there was the winds that really carried a lot of the embers across the freeway and ignited several apartment buildings on fire. The winds here in Santa Clara right now do not appear to be a factor. In fact, as I'm looking around, I'm seeing almost no wind, and the smoke plume is going pretty much straight up. So that is a good sign that this thing can be brought under control by the fire department, and I am starting to see the first gray wisp of smoke as opposed to the brown, dark clouds of smoke that we've seen for the last 20 minutes or so. So it does appear that the fire department is getting a lot of water on this fire, and there is a pretty big firefight with units coming in from throughout the valley, including San Jose, Santa Clara, and probably other neighboring communities as well. Now, El Camino Real is blocked at the moment, and I can see just down the block, maybe 2 blocks from my location, the firefight going on. They have a lot of the big ladders that you can see there that are putting out a lot of water, and they're just starting to get a lot of the gray smoke, which means that the fire is probably in the beginning stages of being extinguished. But another area, just as they wet down one area, the fire may be spreading into other areas. I think the problem, although I can't confirm it at the moment, is that fire department access to some of these really hot spots that are burning right now. I am continuing on my travel into the scene. I can see it just a block away from me right now here on El Camino Real in Santa Clara. This fire is still very much out of control. Back to you.
Right, we are looking at our first shots, Len, of ground shots of this structure. You can see part of it just collapsing in front of our eyes. We know that another part of this structure has collapsed as well, but I mean, it just looks like a total loss. It's a shell. We don't know at this point like what it started with, but we do know that this building was under construction. And, you know, Len made a really good point about the smoke changing. And, you know, Emily, as well, just covering many construction fires, that once that smoke turns from a thick black smoke that we just saw, what, about 15-20 minutes ago, to a white smoke, that is somewhat of a good sign. They are starting to extinguish the flames just a bit, but you can see they're still going on the left-hand side of your screen versus the right-hand side of your screen, where you see that huge plume of smoke, but some of that fuel is starting to burn off now. The big concern are those buildings nearby, to try and save some of those buildings. You see that there are a lot of trees and a lot of businesses, and of course, just to let everybody know, anyone who is going to, you know, plan on going in that area, El Camino Real, eastbound, westbound, completely blocked off. Crews are out there trying to contain these flames.
And also, if you are just joining us, there is an evacuation order in place from Clay to Pierce Streets. If you are in this area, I would go ahead and get out. Better safe than sorry at this situation. Now, I can say from about 15 minutes ago, this is a very different picture than what we originally saw. About 15 minutes ago, flames were leaping 50 feet in the air. It was a very scary sight. You could see it from a great distance away. Now it looks like it's mostly smoke. Those flames have been beaten back quite a bit. Of course, things are still burning, and I can say from covering these construction fires, actually of an apartment complex, that there are so many fuels that are flammable, but also there are chemicals in there. Now, we have not heard about anything here, but in that situation from an apartment complex that I covered in Concord that was on fire and under construction, officials there did tell folks, make sure that their windows are closed, stay inside just in case because of the smoke. In the meantime, again, evacuations are in order, and if you are in this area and not in the evacuation site, go ahead and stay inside, close your windows, and then avoid the area because of all of the emergency personnel that are en route. We know that Santa Clara County is fighting this fire, as well as San Jose Fire, helping the city of Santa Clara.
All right, we want to get back to Darren to talk about the winds in that area, and Len made a really good point about that smoke just kind of going into a big plume of smoke going directly into the sky because of no, it's not windy there.
Exactly. So the smoke was able to vent directly up, meaning it's not wafting over, it's not leaving the South Bay. But interestingly enough, you can actually see this smoke plume even if you're not in the South Bay. So for those of our viewers who are watching that are not in San Jose, and perhaps you're looking at the sky and you think you see something dark in the distance, we can spot this from our camera that sits on top of the Salesforce Tower, which is quite a distance away. And looking down to the south, you can see a little bit of a dark plume of smoke, which is emanating out of the South Bay. And that gives you an idea of just how far away from the source of these flames this plume of smoke can be seen. If you take a look at it, look down underneath the live bug. It might be difficult to tell what's patch of sky and what's darkness, but right above that clump of ships and underneath the live bug, that's the plume of smoke coming off this fire. And a good sign is it's all pretty much going straight up, and then it's hitting the cap of the atmosphere and just kind of sitting there. So when we were talking to the official from the airport down there in San Jose, and she was talking about flight concerns, that's going to make that a somewhat more manageable issue. It's not like this is spreading, and it's not like it's getting pushed around in any violent winds. It's a pretty well-behaved environment as far as the atmosphere is concerned. If you're going to put a large plume of smoke up into the air, this one's pretty much just kind of staying put. And if you're seeing it, I just wanted to show you that vantage point. Yes, that is the plume of smoke coming off this fire. Of course, you get a much better view of this thing from Chopper 5, which is sitting right over it. And this is the one we've been showing pretty much the entire time we've been on. But just good to get a different perspective and to clue you in. If you're not in the South Bay and you are seeing a dark patch of smoke from a distance, that's what you're looking at.
All right, good to know, Darren. Thank you so much for that. We want to show you some video that we just got off of Twitter now. This was just from a short time ago. If we can show that video, we're just getting to it. There we go. Look at that. Yeah, pretty intense flames at that construction site there. As you can see, those that thick black smoke going up into the air. You can hear the fire alarms. This is from one of our viewers on Twitter, and we're going to be talking to that person on the phone and just a short time, but look at that. This is, oh, we do.
We have him. Brian, thank you so much for sending us this video and joining us. Can you talk us through what happened?
Yeah, I was at Panera having breakfast with a colleague, and we smelled some very strong smoke. We went outside, and it didn't look like a huge fire right away, but almost immediately the entire building was engulfed, and flames were going up substantially high, and maybe within 5 minutes or so, emergency personnel started to respond, and I'm really glad to hear that no one was hurt and that the construction crews were able to get out.
Brian, are you still in that area right now?
I am. I'm in the parking lot, and traffic is so hectic. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get out of here.
Yeah, we can hear the sirens in the background of your phone call.
What are you seeing right now?
So it looks like it's mostly out. I'm not even seeing any flames going at all currently, but that could just be my vantage point. The smoke has turned to gray, and it looks like it's certainly under control at this point.
Now, we saw the video that you took and that you sent us in via Twitter, and what you're seeing now. Kind of compare the difference from when this started to what a difference the fire department has made thus far.
Oh no! I mean, absolutely. I was fearful that this fire was going to spread to the houses on Clay Street, and in fact, I'm shocked that it didn't spread. It's a phenomenal testament to the city of Santa Clara and the state for their response. They trained for this, and clearly they were prepared to execute their plans, because just a tremendous job getting this under control and ensuring everyone was safe.
Well, just from our look from Chopper 5, we can tell that there are a lot of people fighting this fire right now to try to contain it. There are hoses in every direction along that area. This is a construction site fire. This is in Santa Clara near El Camino Real at Scott. So evacuations have been ordered for Pierce and Clay Streets in that area. Anyone in that area should know that El Camino Real is closed between Scott Boulevard and Lincoln Street as they fight these flames. They are really trying to keep this from spreading. Again, this was a construction site designed for apartments, and you can see some residential buildings not too far away from this fire. In just the last 20 minutes, firefighters have made an incredible difference on this flame, or on these flames. When we first brought this to you with the breaking news cut-in, the flames were 50 feet in the air. You could see that from the Twitter video that Brian sent in. It looked to be out of control. Luckily, fire crews got there on scene, not just Santa Clara County, but Santa Clara, as well as San Jose firefighters on the scene. They're fighting that fire. They've been able to knock it back to the point that we're really mostly just seeing smoke, at least from our vantage point of Chopper 5. They do have evacuation orders in place, of course, from Clay to Pierce Streets, out of an abundance of caution, because you certainly don't want to take any risks with a fire like this. In the meantime, it seems like there's a hose coming from every single direction on this site. Every single direction, and especially on this part. You know, we've been seeing these flames shoot out of just basically the frame of the building, but you can see how far along the construction was, at least on this side of the building, pretty far along there. So now the hoses are still trying to get out some of those hot spots on that side of the construction site. When we were talking to the San Jose Police Department just a few minutes ago, he told us that there were many construction sites in that area. So not only are there homes where people are living, which makes it dangerous if those flames start to spread, but other construction sites as well. So they are really trying to contain it, and it seems like they've been doing a pretty good job of that, as it's just contained to that construction site. We've been talking about this plume of smoke, and the difference in the color is very, very important.
Which is so reassuring for folks, I'm sure, who are in that area. area because, of course, when it's black, I mean, you can only imagine at a construction site what's being burned. But now, luckily, it's white, so I'm sure a lot of that is also steam. It certainly shows that they've turned a corner when fighting this fire because really, at the front end of this, you didn't know which way this was going to go. Exactly.
And the weather has helped out as well. Darren, is telling us that it is not a windy day today. So that is great for the firefighters out there to try and contain these flames, especially much foliage and so many trees around that area. Obviously, this is off of El Camino Real too, Emily. So this is a major street in that area. It's a major thoroughfare, which of course they have shut down at the moment from Scott to Lincoln. So just avoid it, I would say, for a lot of reasons. Obviously, you don't want to be there around the smoke, but we need to give room to those emergency crews who are there on the scene trying to fight this fire. And we want to give them the space that they need. Of course, 3 different agencies responding, 3 different fire departments, rather. And I'm sure there are multiple police departments on scene. Of course, this is in the firefighting part of this battle. Eventually, there will be an investigation into the cause, but we do know that Chief Bill Kelly will be speaking to the media here shortly, and we'll be checking in at some point a little bit later with him to get the very latest information on that. And of course, this building was under construction, so nobody was living in it, which is good. That limits injuries as well when fires like this break out. But there are still evacuation orders in that area for people who live on Pierce and Clay Street. So take those evacuations seriously. If you're in that zone, you want to get out. You want to make room for those firefighters to get in and do their job. And for those who are in the area, not in the evacuation zone, but nearby, out of an abundance of precaution, because you certainly don't know what is in that smoke, the chemicals or whatnot. In the past apartment construction fires, they've urged people to stay inside and shut their windows. All right, now you are watching KPIX 5 News at noon, and of course, we are still following that breaking news. A fire has erupted in Santa Clara County. It broke out at a building under construction. Officials are confirming this is an apartment complex, and it sparked just after 11 this morning. We've been watching it for some time. The fire is by El Camino Real and Scott Boulevard in Santa Clara. We just talked about evacuations. They've been ordered for Pierce and Clay Streets. The flames at one point shooting at least 30 feet in the air. It was some scary stuff. Chopper 5 is live over the scene right now. White smoke is filling the air, which is great news considering it was dark earlier. Multiple crews are responding to the area right now. Assistance from San Jose has been requested. Multiple hose lines are working to knock down those flames. The smoke, of course, as we said, has turned white. It looks like the water seems to be working. They've really turned a corner on this fire. El Camino Real closed between Scott Boulevard and Lincoln Street as well. So keep that in mind if you're headed in that area. Just let the firefighters do their job. Joining us on the phone now is KPIX 5's Len Ramirez. Len? Len, are you there? Okay. All right. We'll check back in with Len in just a bit. Do we have him? All right, we're going to check back in just a bit, but we want to show you some video from earlier. There were incredibly large and black plumes of smoke filling the sky just a short time ago. Look at that, the flames just shooting high up into the sky. Firefighters surrounding that condominium complex, crews on ladders working to put that fire out. The perimeter was set up fairly quickly, according to witnesses and someone we talked to who actually posted some video on Twitter. No word, though, if this is affecting power in the area, but people are being asked to avoid that area. Now, bystanders are gathering around at the Burger King across the street. We also saw a Denny's from our Chopper 5 shot. That structure just, completely visible. It looks like a total loss. All you can really see is the framework there. The complex's skeleton blackened by those flames. Much of the middle, too, has collapsed. Yeah, the scaffolding is also visible from this angle. Social media users are saying the smoke is visible from the Hayward Hills. Again, mutual aid has been requested. Planes have been seen landing near the area. The San Jose airport, we spoke to her. She is not, or the spokesperson said flights are not affected. It is not far from San Jose airport at all. All right, now we want to check in with KPIX 5's Len Ramirez. Len?
Well, this fire continues to burn here on El Camino Real in Santa Clara. We can give you a view now of some of the damage there. You can see the flames are still coming through some of the plywood there on some of the structure that was under construction. This was a big apartment or condo complex called Santa Clara. They were now selling, is the sign in front, saying that it was going to be 56 condos here in Santa Clara. This is obviously a big loss for this development company, and the loss of housing in Santa Clara County, that's no big or no small loss as well. But fire department officials from throughout the area, Santa Clara as well as San Jose, continue to put a lot of water on this fire. It does look like they are knocking it down. Just that constant stream of water from some of the big booms there in Santa Clara are getting the upper hand on this thing, at least from what I can tell at street level. Now this is continuing to put out a lot of smoke. It does look like they have managed to contain the fire, keep it from spreading to the neighboring areas. I saw people on the other side of this development on their roofs with their garden hoses trying to wet that ceiling and roof area of their home down so that embers that may fly into them would not ignite and catch and spread this fire into the surrounding neighborhoods. It does look that things are relatively under control here. We have fire department people spreading more hose lines here as more and more crews come online. And it looks like we're looking at a guy here on his knees about to let one of these huge jets go. They've been laying lines, and they've got looks like the sides of this building covered with the big booms and the hook and ladder trucks, but nothing on the front right now. So this may be something that we will watch in the next couple of minutes to see whether or not that hose line comes online and can get more water on this fire. Now, the businesses in the area, it doesn't look like any have been really shut down. They continue to operate. The road is closed, obviously, because of all the fire apparatus and the hose lines that are here. So you will not be getting through El Camino Real and Santa Clara for quite some time. This continues to burn. We're starting to see some of the superstructure collapse in little pieces, not huge chunks. But the fire department obviously are keeping their distance because this was a fragile building. It was only a shell, and was not a completed structure, so the likelihood of a collapse and a tip over is very high here. Now, as more and more of this building collapses onto itself, it looks like they just energized this water hose. Vince, if you can pull down here, you can see the hose here just coming online with several firefighters here in Santa Clara wearing their Santa Clara jackets there. You can tell that they are local crews, and they are energizing that with water, and they will be putting water on it as quickly as they can. Now it looks like the water pressure may have just dropped. Vince, are you on the street with that shot? You can see the folks down there trying to get water onto the fire itself, but it looks like it energized with water and then all of a sudden went out again. So the crews here on the ground waiting for some more water to come so they can put it on this fire. That's pretty much the situation from here. We will continue to watch that. This is going to be a big event here for the next several hours, I would imagine, into the evening hours tonight.
Yeah, and it looks pretty important on that side, the side that you're showing us, Len, because there are still flames coming out part of that structure. So it looks pretty important for those hoses to, have the water ready to douse those flames.
Yeah, and get those working. Len, do you have any rough estimates on how many people are out there trying to fight this fire in total?
Well, it looks, I can only say dozens and dozens. I can see probably at least a dozen fire trucks from my vantage point, and more are arriving all the time. As I was driving in here a few minutes ago, I could see that there were units coming from throughout Santa Clara and San Jose as well, maybe some other nearby cities to lend mutual aid, because the weather is starting to warm up here, and these crews that have been battling this now for 45 minutes to an hour will be tiring out, and with all this heat, it does take a lot out of them. So other crews will be coming in and giving these folks who have been on the fire lines a spell. More water lines are continuing to come on. I can now see, it looks like three or four big hose lines that have been energized and are putting a lot more water here on the front of this fire. But this one crew right back here in the front Looks like they're still waiting for water. Don't know what the holdup is, but there's some flames right in front of them, and I know that they would love to get the water on those flames. Unfortunately, they're not able to do that. The firefighter right there just calling to his colleagues who are trying to get water into this hose line. So that here comes a little more now here. It looks like they're going to get a little better pressure this time than they did the first time. I think that is coming from a pumper truck rather than a hydrant on the ground. So I just heard the nearest pumper truck come on with a little bit more of a rev to the engine. And so this hose line is now fully energized, it looks like, and they're starting to get water right there in the front of the building where flames are still visible.
Visible coming out of the wood along that frame. Len, we're going to talk with you in just a bit. Thank you so much, though, for your perspective there. And again, if you're just tuning in, we are covering this construction fire. This is off of Scott Boulevard in El Camino Real. El Camino Real being a major thoroughfare in that area. It is closed right now, east and westbound traffic, because of this structure fire. This was designed for apartments, an apartment complex, and this is video from earlier when this fire just broke out. That was probably about 11 o'clock this morning, and you can see those flames and that thick black smoke.
What a difference just about an hour has made. You can see that's what it was just an hour ago, and now look at this. That all the kudos go to the fire crews on the scene, of which there are many. You heard Len Ramirez say there are dozens and dozens. At this point, we know 3 responding agencies are on the scene, and boy, it looks like there's a water hose coming from every direction, which has really made the difference there on fighting this fire. We've been keeping an eye on this throughout the last hour. In the meantime, though, we do want to check in with Darren, who's been keeping an eye on the weather and how that is going to affect this, Darren.
Well, I think no surprise here, Emily. The weather has been one of the good factors here. We're not dealing with strong winds. If you look at the map on the right side of the screen now, look down to the bottom right-hand corner, and there's the current reading for San Jose. Actually, that's coming from the airport, and it's a northwest breeze at 7 miles an hour. In other words, thank you very much. The wind was not a major factor on this one. You can see the smoke plume rising off here is also not getting violently whipped around or pushed around. It's pretty much staying in place. In fact, it's going straight up and then staying in the neighborhood. It may drift a bit here or there, but it's not the kind of situation where you see smoke like this start going sideways or start moving over other parts of the South Bay. However, this smoke went high enough. It's been burning long enough, and it was intense enough about 45 minutes ago. The plume's gotten high enough. Don't be surprised if you are not in the South Bay and you are seeing what looks like a plume of smoke off in the distance. We're seeing it from our camera that sits on top of the Salesforce Tower, and that camera is 40 miles away. So from 40 miles distant, we can actually see that as well, and that'll give you an idea on what you're seeing there. Also, it's a good story in that it just went straight up, and you can also tell from that camera as well. But clearly, the best shot is going to be the close-up one from the chopper to give us a bird's-eye view on what appears now to be a fire that they've got a really good handle on, guys.
All right. Thank you so much, Darren. And here is a look at a couple of images from the website for the development. They are called the Anatara Villas. It was going to offer 56 units, so that is a lot. 1, 2, and 3 bedroom floor plans in that area. The website boasts several high-end features inside the units and around the ground there. So again, this was a major construction site right here, 56 units, as we can tell from the Chopper 5 shot. And this covers a really big area.
It does. And, you know, it's interesting to look at the renderings right next to what's actually been built and is burning. It looks like they were a good way through construction of this, at least at the point that this is going to be a really significant loss to the builder and the developer at this point. Of course, firefighters are on the ground trying to do whatever they can. They have made significant headway on this in just the last half hour, say 45 minutes. They've taken a fire that was burning what seemed to be out of control with flames 30 feet in the air. You could see it from a significant distance, not just the smoke, the flames, and knocked it back to this. Now, of course, this isn't great news either, but it is certainly better than flames roaring up into the air. And at this point, they do have an evacuation in place right now. That is right at Clay to Pierce Streets on the backside of this construction site. And they're all asking all others to simply stay away from this area. El Camino Real, a major thoroughfare. This is going to be backing up traffic, but that's closed from Scott to Lincoln just to give these crews enough time, enough space to really fight this battle.
And they are fighting. I mean, this is an attack on all sides of this major construction site there, and you can see why. This is in a residential and a business area, so there are businesses just right across the street and a lot of trees around and also a lot of homes, especially on the back side of this building, at least from this view from Chopper 5. This is, again, what we're hearing now, a construction worker may have been hurt trying to escape this fire.
We are going to be checking in on that. In the meantime, let's go to the ground where Len Ramirez. Len, do you have any information further on that potential injury?
Well, we don't have any specific information on the potential injury, but I can tell you that when we arrived here, there were a lot of construction people leaving this area. This is an active construction site. As you can see, there are firefighters all over the place, and there were just about an hour ago a lot of construction crews in this area. It was an active site, so we had maybe 100, 150 workers in this area. Now, when something like this gets started, because it is exposed and the windows are open and there's a lot of air that can flow through, this thing just lights up like a chimney. It just really goes quickly. And so if workers might have been kind of trapped in the interior areas, that could have been a big problem for somebody. We don't know the extent of any injuries at this point, but we have a white helmet here, so let me try and get an interview. Hey, Chief? We're on live with KPIX.
There's the guy you want to talk to. Right.
Can I ask you real quick?
Right over that rig.
Anything about injuries?
No, I don't have any information about that.
How's it looking so far?
Well, as you can see, the fire's pretty much knocked down, so it looks good right now.
What are the specific?
I'm going to direct you right over there to the incident commander.
I'll let you go. That was Battalion Chief Sadler. Did not get his first name. He directed me over to a fire information officer in this area. I can't tell where that person is, so I'm just going to keep going here. This is the Santa Clara Fire Department you're looking at right now. They have very high pressure hoses. You can see the two gentlemen there putting their body weight on that hose because these things are very hard to handle when they have so much pressure. There are continuing to be small explosions, maybe some propane tanks that were used for power, things like that by the construction crews that we continue to hear going off. We continue to see small pieces of flames here and there, but you heard the battalion chief say that for the most part, this fire has been knocked down. They got it under control. Right now, they are just putting more and more water on it, hoping to get these flames and whatever hot spots that are left, doused with water so they will not come back. Now, the big danger is all that scaffolding. A lot of that scaffolding was put up for construction purposes, and it goes 3 stories high. And those things can be very dangerous when they don't have, the attachments to the walls and things like that that have burned away now. So that's going to be a danger sign. You can see that the firefighters are really keeping their distance because they don't want one of those things to come down on a fire crew as they continue to fight this fire. But again, very fortunate situation in that the winds did not really push this fire into neighboring areas. There's a neighborhood just on the other side of our vantage point here in Santa Clara, and unlike the Santana Row fire several years ago that also caught while that place was under construction, there was a lot of wind that day. It happened in the afternoon, so the winds were up, and the flames and the embers were pushed into a apartment complex, causing several more fires. But it does look like things are getting under control here in Santa Clara. Reporting live in Santa Clara, Len Ramirez, back to you.
All right, Len, thank you so much. We want to go to Chief Chappell Hellman with the Menlo Park Fire Protection District. Are you there?
I am.
Okay, so can you just let us know, how do you even begin on a structure so big to fight these flames?
Well, the first thing I'm sure they looked at was what's around it that's going to burn. The structure, like you see, it's pretty well going to be a total loss. So, the firefighter's going to set up their master stream appliances. That's going to take a little time. That's the aerial ladder trucks. That's the larger appliances on the ground, and then the deck guns off the engine companies. But what you don't want to have happen is, as Len just said a minute ago, and happened on Santana Row. Unfortunately, there's no wind today, so it was going straight up. But equally, the radiant heat and the fire from the main body there, you don't want that transferring into exposures, meaning other structures around it. So they're going to try and cut it off, if you want to call it that, from burning something else, meaning that they're going to contain it to the structure of origin. And that's, as you saw now, they've done a good job of putting up a lot of master stream appliances. And so as they're doing that, they're going to get knocked down on that fire.
We're learning from the Santa Clara County Fire Department they have 10 engines, 3 trucks, 5 chief officers, rescue air light units, and 2 ambulances on the scene. In the scope of fighting fires, where does this fall in severity?
Well, I'm sure it sounds like they're up to a third alarm. And at this point, like I said, I think once they get their master stream set up, aerial ladder trucks, as you mentioned, you're going to see the guys down the street with the larger 2.5-inch hose lines with what we call stingers or large appliances. They can deliver a lot of water. But it's a matter of time here. And they're going to need, this is a total loss. They're going to have to scrape this whole place and start over. And this is the danger of open web wood construction. We've seen it all over. We saw it at Santana Row, saw it in Emeryville, saw it in Oakland. It's something all of us in the fire business are concerned about is, this rush to develop has created, many times using these types of products. It's an unsafe situation if they're not sprinklering or have security on site. Since it's a work day, who knows if they were doing what we call some hot work where they sweating copper and the plumbers were running pipe. Something started the fire, and it may never be known, but it's a total loss. So again, the good news is it sounds like nobody's lost their life. And at this point, it doesn't sound like any exposure structures or other people's property was damaged or destroyed.
Yeah, we've just gotten an update from Santa Clara Fire Chief Bill Kelly that the spread of the fire has been stopped, though that one worker was injured escaping the fire and taken to the hospital. They're trying to work on the extent of the injuries. The fire marshal is on scene to investigate the cause. What does that look like moving forward?
Well, I think the first thing I do, and this is obviously up to them, but was a problem at Santana Row we saw as well, was bring ATF in there. Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. They have a lab. They have more resources. They're also another entity that can help with the fire investigation. It doesn't hurt to do that. But the sad part about open frame wood like this is you may never find out because that area of origin may be completely destroyed. I mean, really what this is a house of kindling. And so once it gets going, there's no stopping it other than, these firefighters standing around it, as you see, and operating these large hose lines, and they're going to try and get it knocked down. And they've done a good job of that.
They've done a really good job about just containing it inside the frame of that apartment complex. Something that Len Ramirez talked about just a short time ago and that I've seen covering fires as well is, there are homes that are close to this unit right here. And so homeowners, instead of evacuating, were on top of their roofs, as Len said, with garden hoses to try to protect their own homes. Talk about the danger in doing that.
Well, there's a danger always for any exposure fire, meaning other than the structures of origin. So, the homeowners, obviously, they want to stick around if it's burning because they want to ensure their property's not going to burn as well. But there's a risk in doing that. You can get burned, you can fall. There's a lot of things that can happen. I mean, ideally, the firefighters get there in time and then they take over with the larger diameter hoses and also the right protective equipment and the knowledge of what we do in our business to make sure that those exposures don't burn, and it looks like right now that's been successful. I'm not sure if anything got melted. The radiant heat coming off of one of these fires is tremendous. I'm sure people who are there can feel it across El Camino. That's how hot it's going to be.
And Chief, there's a lot of smoke, and there was even more smoke earlier. I know from covering these construction fires in the past that, there are all sorts of chemicals on site. Is there a health concern involved with this?
Well, I wouldn't, I actually saw it myself. But, it was going straight up. That's a good sign. I mean, anytime you see, there's a couple things with smoke you look for, right, which is what's it doing? So when you got a header like you see there where that smoke is going straight up, that's good. Then it's going to hit that one, stratosphere area. It's going to spread out. That's not unusual. It's going to get in the jet stream. So when it's going straight up, there's no wind. And that's a lot better for the firefighters because it's not getting that increased boost of having that wind blow into it and, stoke it up even further. But in terms of the exposures that you see out of smoke, obviously you don't want to breathe it. It looks like it's primarily wood, but I'm sure you can have some other paper products, construction items on scene, like different tanks and so forth that they may be using for different purposes. So, you know, anytime it's going straight up, that's good. Anytime you see white smoke, that's even better. It means the fire's going out.
And that's what we're seeing right now is that white smoke. So that is good that that fuel is burning off. Chief Scheffelhammond with the Menlo Park Fire Protection District, thank you so much.
You bet.
All right, right now we want to look at a video from just about an hour and a half ago when the fire broke out. This is from Brian on Twitter, who posted this video on Twitter. Now look how intense those flames were burning this apartment complex under construction. You could hear all of the sirens in the background there with those thick plumes of black smoke just going in the air. At one point, those flames were shooting 30 to 50 feet in the air.
We had a camera that was miles away, at least it seemed miles away, and you could see those flames in the air, and it was really, really a scary situation. But again, as you heard the chief say, the smoke was going directly up, and we attribute that to the weather. Let's go now to Darren Peck with what influence that has on fighting a fire like this.
Well, one of the things I can point out, and I know this camera is much farther away than the pictures we've been showing, is the camera that sits on top of the Salesforce Tower. You can actually see a plume of smoke rising in the distance, and that camera is 40 miles away. And one of the things you can see from that, and I know it might be difficult to pick it out if you're watching, but look at the live bug. See where it says Salesforce Tower? Look directly under that. See that dark patch of sky? That's the plume of smoke coming off of this fire. And remember, this camera is 40 miles away from where that smoke's starting from. Now that smoke's going to be able to rise to about 10,000 feet before the winds start shifting on it. And even at that, the winds shift to more of a southerly direction, which means they would start to take that higher plume of smoke completely out of the Bay Area and move it down to the south. So I think that's a good sign in terms of air quality. We already heard that this smoke was going almost directly up, so you weren't really going to have to worry about much of an issue for air quality. On two fronts, for those of you down in the South Bay, I mean, if you're very close to this, you probably want to avoid it because there could still be small little remnants that you could encounter in terms of having to breathe in air you don't want to. But in terms of the airport out there, this smoke stayed confined. And it was able to rise in one steady plume, and that probably didn't have to have a big impact on air travel either, just in case you've got to get to the airport and pick somebody up. All right, that's pretty much the weather's impact on this, guys. Thankfully, this was a good weather day for this to happen.
Yeah, thankfully. We're thankful for that. All right, Darren, thanks.
We want to go back now to the field with Len Ramirez, who is on the ground right there. Len, what is the latest update since we've talked to you?
Well, the fire continues to burn in small pockets in the building that was under construction behind me, but the firefight just continues to get bigger and bigger. I want to let you see down the street here. This is El Camino Real at Pierce, and there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 major hose lines there shooting water probably 100 to 150 feet across the street and into that fire area. You can see that the fire department is keeping their distance from the fire. They're just putting the hoses on the exterior structure, trying to keep it from spreading. Just down, if we look through all that mist that is being created by those hose lines, you can see some of the fire apparatus in the neighborhood street. Now, I did get a look at that earlier. There's just a lineup of several fire trucks all up and down that street for fire protection. That's one of the first things that the department did when they saw this fire, how big it was. They put units into the surrounding street to protect homes, to protect lives, people who may not be able to evacuate. Now, that area, I understand, is under an evacuation order, and so the fire department is protecting it. Earlier today, there were people with garden hoses on their roofs trying to wet things down to keep the fire from spreading onto their property. It does appear that the fire has been contained to this one construction site, the condos that were going to be built here, and so that is very good news, but this will continue to be a very hot scene for the next several hours. Reporting live in Santa Clara, Len Ramirez, KPIX 5.
Len, thank you, and we want to give you another update from the Santa Clara fire chief. The spread of the fire has been stopped, but one worker was injured trying to escape those flames. We don't know the extent of the injuries right now, but we are going to keep an eye on that for sure.
He has been transported to the hospital, of course. On this scene, there are at least 10 engines, 3 trucks, 5 chief officers, rescue air, as well as light units, and of course 2 ambulances.
And we are going to continue to keep an eye on this. Of course, you can get all of the latest information on our website, kpix.com, and of course, come back here at 5 o'clock tonight.
Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
you nuts? When you act stupid, stupid things happen.
Wow.
Wow, huh? They don't just keep me here because I'm a pretty face.
Judge Judy's all new at 4:30 on KPIX5.
This is America's latest superhero.
Don't forget to show love.
This is his kindergarten class.
Fun day.
This one-time school administrator is now architect. This is just some of her army.
I want other people to know what they can do to their neighborhoods. This is doable.
This history is still living.
This is a miracle!
So this is working.
Oh, it's working.
It's all right that the world is crazy, as long as I make my little corner of the world sane. It's time to fight. Oh my God, oh my God. Oh dear God. Oh boy.
The Good Fight, all episodes now streaming.
Sometimes feud is fun. But sometimes,
After you murder someone,
it's a killer.
name something you must quickly get rid of.
The weapon that you use.
You gotta clean up all the blood.
The bullet shells.
You're gonna have to get rid of the witnesses.
This family over here got some good